Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're here to have AlphaBOLD and TD SYNNEX share a little bit with you about some cybersecurity trends for 2023, and as we look beyond that, and how to be prepared as an organization and to protect yourselves. We know this day and age that there's a lot going on out there. It's a complicated world, and we're hopefully here to help demystify some of that. So as we get started, a couple ground rules. Everyone's going to be on mute, except for the presenters. If you do have questions, please submit them in the chat, and then towards the end, we'll be able to look at those questions and be able to pull those up and hopefully address some of those. If we have to follow up afterwards, we'll let you know. We will have a couple polls throughout this where we ask you a couple questions, get some feedback. Hopefully we can get that from you. That helps us enhance as we go what we're presenting, so we know a little bit more about our audience. And that's pretty much it. I'm gonna next, we're going to talk about our presenters for today. And you see I'm there on the left, and I've been in the IT space since the early 90s. Before some of these guys have actually been out there even knowing what IT was. But I've been working for multiple levels, but my background's in accounting and finance, and I moved into IT many years ago. But so I always look at it from the perspective of how the two connect. How do we connect IT with the needs of the organization and to make it bigger, better, and prepared for the future? Today we have speaking from TD SYNNEX, we have Greg Wilson. Greg is, this is his space in the Azure cybersecurity, and he is a advocate of zero trust, which you'll learn more about as we go forward into the presentation. He'll talk a little bit about that. And he's, of course, very familiar with SOC rules and all the details that go into that with the hundreds and hundreds of points that we all are used to looking at if you're trying to do SOC compliance. From AlphaBOLD, we're going to have Khwaja Farman. We'll call him Farman throughout the rest of the presentation, make it easy. But I've been working with him for a few years now, and he's an amazing mind in this space and knows a lot about security. He's been helping our customers implement and improve their security posture and helping them in many ways, such as helping them with their reviewing what they currently have, identifying gaps, and helping come up with a plan, be strategic as to how they can improve their security posture. And he's done a lot more than that, but I'm going to turn it over to them and let them really carry the rest of the conversation. Let me quickly talk about our agenda, and then I'll turn it over to Greg. So we're talking first about zero trust, and Greg will kick us off with that. Then we'll get into some of the changes in regulations related to cybersecurity that it's helpful to be aware of. Every organization is different, so how it affects you, or whether it affects you directly, will have to be very situational, but it's good to know what the landscape is and also what your partners and or are working with out there, or perhaps other parts of your organization. We'll talk a little bit about machine learning, of course. Well, everybody's talking about machine learning these days. In fact, I do work a lot with different customers in that space, so I'm very familiar with it. But we'll be talking specifically within its use within security, and then we'll be talking about different models that you can use related to empowering your security knowledge, posture, implementation, and what some of those options are. And then we'll take a look at some of those questions that you guys have provided us with, and hopefully be able to provide you with some, insightful feedback. Without much ado, I'm going to get out of the way. I'm going to turn it over to Greg to get us started. And thank everybody for being here. And I want to thank Greg and Farman for both being here to help us out and sharing their knowledge with the rest of us.
Hey, thanks, Brian. Thank you, Brian. All right, well, like Brian said, my name is Greg Wilson. I'm a design sales engineer with TD SYNNEX. I'm a Microsoft certified cybersecurity architect and an Azure security engineer. And just like I said in my bio there, a strong believer in zero trust. And I want to just take this time real quick to say thank you to AlphaBOLD. Anytime I get to talk about zero trust is great, but specifically with a great partner like AlphaBOLD, I think it's a unique opportunity. So let's begin. What is zero trust? So Microsoft defines Zero Trust as a proactive integrated approach across all layers of the digital estate that explicitly and continuously verifies every transaction, asserts least privilege, and relies on intelligence, advanced detection, and real-time response. So in essence, Zero Trust is the essential security strategy for today's reality. So in 2020, the global pandemic compelled nearly every organization to embrace a Zero Trust strategy. So employees with remote, virtual private networks were breached or overwhelmed, and the digital transformation became critical to an organizational sustainability. The mandate for emerged for Zero Trust approach to verify and secure every identity, validate device health, inform least privilege or enforce release privilege, and capture and analyze telemetry to better understand and secure the digital environment. So governments and businesses around the world recognize this imperative and accelerated the adoption of Zero Trust. This means, in essence, that if you are not implementing Zero Trust today, you are putting your entire organization at risk more than ever. Next slide, please. So when you break down Microsoft's holistic approach to Zero Trust, there are three key principles that built this framework and capabilities. First, move from assumption to explicit verification, verify explicitly. Adopt a policy-based least privilege access model for users. Use least privilege. Design the principle that every element of your system can be breached and assume breach. But everything, of course, starts with identity. You want to intelligently and automatically verify that the user really is who they say they are and not an imposter. This can be done through multi-factor authentication, but also detecting risks such as impossible travel or credentials that have been up for sale on the dark web. Beyond the identity of the individual, you want to verify the device you're using. And there are certain questions and concerns that you have. Is it free of threats? Is it managed by the IT department? Is the device compliant with my corporate IT policy? Also, we want to ask questions like, what type of data is the user trying to access? Because Microsoft believes organizations need to embrace Zero Trust, it is built into the heart of all Microsoft products and services. Microsoft integrated solutions offer built-in Zero Trust controls that you can implement your security model scale across the entire digital estate. But it's also important to remember that Zero Trust works hand in hand with the shared responsibility model. Next slide, please. So let's review it. Some of you may not, it's been a while that some of you have seen this, some of you may not have seen this at all. So in an on-premise data center, you own the whole stack. As you move to the cloud, some responsibilities transfer to Microsoft or the cloud provider. The following diagram illustrates the areas of responsibility between you and Microsoft in the case of Azure, according to type of development, or deployment rather. For all cloud deployment types, you own your data and identities. You're also responsible for protecting the security of your on-prem resources and cloud components you control. But regardless of the type of deployment, data, endpoints, account, and access management are always retained by you. Zero Trust and shared responsibility work hand in hand to effectively protect your data and network integrity. But that's only part of the story. So what I'm going to do now is hand it over to my colleague Farman to have a closer look. Farman?
Well, thank you, Greg, for sharing such useful information with our audience today on the Zero Trust model and why it is so much important to understand the need for it. And for the most part, it is what our audience should be using as a first step to address for 2023. While it is important to understand the strategy for Zero Trust model principles, it is also necessary to understand the cybersecurity regulations that are now being enforced in 2023. The dynamic socioeconomic environment of the last few years has had a lasting impact on cloud adoption. A global pandemic and stay-at-home mandates drove companies to accelerate their digital transformation, including shifting to cloud-based applications to support remote workers and quickly rolling out new cloud services to retain customers. As we close 2022, digital transformation initiatives remain in the fast lane. And if 2023 cloud computing trends are any indication, there's no slowing down. So moving to the cloud is no longer optional now, as it benefits new capabilities and has proven vital for moving forward, especially in an uncertain economy. It makes us consider the regulation and its fines. Industries and companies will become liable for in terms of staying protected in the cloud or on-premise. Now, let's start on our journey to enforce cloud cybersecurity regulations in 2023. The society has been predicting the technology of the future since Julius Verne. But based on those predictions, we should now be flying cars to work and enjoying fully automated robot made service. But for cybersecurity, predicting the future is grounded in realities, which are already here. For most people, forecasting the future of cybersecurity for the year ahead might seem like guesswork. But those in cybersecurity have to proactively anticipate what the bad guys may be planning. When it comes to predicting industry trends, a good rule of thumb is that the more reliable the sources, then the more accurate the predictions will tend to be. With the benefits of decades in the industry and the available expertise of thriving cybersecurity service companies, there are countless signals that we use to accurately forecast what is going to happen over the course of the new year. Whereas we see a whole new suite of cybersecurity regulations and enforcements are now in the offing, both at the state and federal level in the US and around the world, for which companies don't just need to sit by and wait for the rules to be written and then implemented. However, rather, they need to be working now to understand the kind of regulations that are presently being considered in 2023 and should prepare to act. That is why it takes us to talk about the enforced regulations our audience should be keeping an eye out in the year 2023 as one of our tips for cybersecurity protection. In a suggestion, we'll be covering regulations and its examples required for industries from medical to finances, and then to general implications of its usage subjecting to all. The first on our list is ISO IEC 27001, which is an international standard to manage information security. The standard was originally published jointly by the International Organization for Standardization, ISO, and the International Electrotechnical Commission, IEC, in 2005. It was again revised most recently in 2022. The standard generally enforces design and implements a coherent and comprehensive suite of information security controls and other forms of risk treatment, such as risk avoidance or risk transfer, to address those risks that are deemed unacceptable and examine the organization's information security risks, taking account of the threats, vulnerability, and then its impact. Then we have Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA. And for the people who are unaware of HIPAA, it is a standard to protect sensitive patient health information from being disclosed without the patient's consent or knowledge. It is commonly used by most of the medical organizations, as well as companies offering medical insurance coverage or companies retaining employee medical information, which is now a primary concern to be protected and secured. On number 3, we have the Gramm-Leach-Pillai Act, which requires financial institutions, companies that offer consumer financial products or services like loans, financials, or investment advisors to explain their information sharing practices to their customer and to safeguard sensitive data. A thorough documentation is a necessity, and strict security needs to be in place to be met for these fintech companies. After that, we have CISA, the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act, which was initially proposed as a legislation that will allow United States government and agencies and non-government entities to share information with each other as they investigated cyber attacks. But now in 2023, this is expected to be regulated as a norm, requiring full coverage of auditing and reporting controls to manage each information holding entities for organization utilizing technology to carry out business operations. Honorable mentions also include CCPA, EU Cybersecurity Act, and General Data Protection, also known as GDPR, which are now going to see a revised enforcement in 2023. It seems like nothing is now immune from inflation. The hammer will start to come down harder and more frequently when an organization is breached. Adding to the trend, state privacy laws are about to go into effect, along with new measures of compliance specific to breaches. The rules are becoming stricter, so expect that the fines that are on the books to hit pocketbooks even harder, especially as future fines are expected to grow against anyone that isn't deemed to have had their houses in order prior to a breach, for which we have prepared next steps for addressing these concerns. And now let's take a look at what they are. Companies can now take the following steps to ensure they align the state and federal cybersecurity regulations, no matter which part of the world they belong from. You can use the conventional manual cycle by using this checklist, which advises us to first recheck the internal procedures and confirm they're up to the task. Then revisit your security documentation and security controls to look for security loopholes. Then you can check if your organization is covering for advanced threats such as ransomware, phishing, and information protection, etc. And lastly, you can sign on and audit a firm to confirm if you're ready for achieving state federal cybersecurity regulation. Or you can simply simplify this and go for a more holistic approach by onboarding a futuristic SIM-source solution and automating controls for suggestions and remediation, which will evidently safeguard your company from the high fines that your books can expect to take due to a breach in your infrastructure vulnerability. Taking in consideration the regulations are expected to be stricken over time and become heavier on the pocket for cybersecurity insurances. So one might ask, where do you find a solution without going over every third-party product and rigorous testing, and without maintaining multiple platforms to only serve us one purpose? The answer would be the Microsoft security ecosystem, which promises and delivers that you can do more with less, where you can protect it all with Microsoft security and eliminate gaps and get the simplified, comprehensive protection and expertise you need to innovate and grow in a changing world. But many companies fall for a different security solution to answer only one objective. You can get it all under one same platform, remediating you with the thought, for example, of managing different compliance management solutions or solutions for email protection or even an identity or information protection. As you can see now in the image, it shows that 60% saving calculation is an estimate based on the cost and complexity of buying point solutions from multiple vendors for cybersecurity coverage. The pricing indicates it would cost a company about $63 per user per month for a representative basket of solutions covering typical security, compliance, identity, management, and privacy needs. However, by adding Microsoft 365 E5 license for advanced compliance and security to Microsoft 365 E3 core security and compliance, these same companies can reduce their cost to approximately $24 per user per month, based on the direct prices which come from Microsoft offering. And you can save a whole lot more if the recommendations come through a designated partner like AlphaBOLD and TD SYNNEX. This represents savings of up to 60%. That also means fewer vendors to manage, more efficient operations, and reduce cost and risk of cyber threats. All of these benefits can result from helping organizations do more with less and address all the concerns for your regulations faced in 2023. I think I'll pass it on to Brian now to open up a poll that we have in place for our audience.
Well, thank you, Farman. Really appreciate that, guys. That's already some really good information and things for organizations to be thinking about, from Greg talked about with the zero trust, and how Farman was talking about how these things align with your internal and international and domestic compliance concerns. And these are all things we're going to come about. So the poll is out there. It's a simple poll. It's just to really understand what you're doing today for your security solutions. And this will help us make sure we improve our context for the rest of the presentation today. So we'll take about another 30 seconds. Please vote if you have a chance. All right. And we'll give everybody a moment to do that. A couple more moments. Excellent. So we're going to start closing down the poll here. All right. Thank you, everybody, for doing that. And it looks like it's quite a mix. A lot of folks actually on each one of those options. We see that some folks are using a single solution, which is interesting. Most common is actually the multiple solutions, and one of the things that the providers like Microsoft are doing are actually enhancing their capabilities so that you can have a single solution. And we have a few folks that haven't really done anything sophisticated yet. They haven't really gone too far with it. So hopefully the rest of the conversation will be applicable to each of you. Please think of any questions that affect you directly and make sure you post those in chat. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Farman to continue, and thank you everybody for your time.
Well, thank you, Brian, for that. And as you can see now by the results, that almost the majority of companies fall to adapting multiple security solutions, which result in increasing the cost and management effort. And the cost of hiring skilled resources is a whole other ballgame. Whereas you can do most of it with the help of machine learning and AI-powered Microsoft products. So our next step focuses on the machine learning capabilities in Microsoft security products as a result of Microsoft worldwide collaboration and a $1 billion investment in security. So when discussing Microsoft products, one cannot fail to mention the importance of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint with enriched machine learning capabilities. Most of you might know it as a product that comes built onto your Windows OS powered desktops, but it has so much more capabilities to offer that enterprises are using today to leverage the high-end cybersecurity features with automation available today in the market. As Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is an enterprise endpoint security platform designed to help enterprises network, prevent, and detect and investigate to respond to advanced threats. Defender for Endpoint uses the following combination of technology built into Windows and Microsoft Robust Cloud Service, starting with threat and vulnerability management. Its built-in core vulnerability management uses a modern risk-based approach to discover, assess, prioritize, and mitigate endpoint vulnerabilities and misconfiguration. Then we have attack surface reduction capabilities. The attack surface reduction capabilities provides the first line of defense in the stack by ensuring configuration settings are properly set and exploit mitigation techniques are applied. The capabilities resist attacks and exploitation. This set of capabilities also include network protection and web protection, which regulates access to malicious IP addresses, domains, and URLs. Whereas next generation protection is one of the most extensive protection features of Microsoft Defender. To further enforce the security parameter of your network, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint uses next generation protection designed to catch all types of emerging threats, with features like behavior-based heuristics and real-time antivirus protection, with always-on scanning using files and detects and blocks apps that are deemed unsafe, but might not be detected as malware based on machine learning capabilities. Cloud-delivered protection also includes, in the next generation protection, near instant detection and blocking of new and emerging threats. And then there's also a part which is for dedicated protection and product updates, which is a part of next generation protection, which includes updates related to keeping Microsoft Defender antivirus up to date. Then we have endpoint detection and response. The endpoint detection and response capabilities are put in place to detect, investigate, and respond to advanced threats that may have made it past the first two pillars. Advanced hunting, a tool within endpoint detection and response, provides a query-based threat hunting tool that lets you proactively find breaches and create custom detection. After that, we have auto investigation and remediation, which is in conjunction with being able to quickly respond to advanced attacks Microsoft Defender for Endpoint offers with automatic investigation and remediation capabilities that would evidently help you reduce the volume of alerts in minutes at scale. Lastly, we have Microsoft Threat Expert, which is endpoint attack notification, which provides proactive hunting for the most important threats to your network, including human arbitrary intrusions, hands-on keyboard attacks, and advanced attacks like cyber espionage. Next slide, please. After that, we have Microsoft Defender Endpoint Security and Machine Learning, which has the following framework features. Firstly, it provides a comprehensive perspective to AI system security, where each element of the AI system lifecycle is in a production setting, from data collection to data processing to model deployment. It also is accounted for AI supply chains for security, as well as the controls and policies with respect to backup, recovery, and contingency planning related to AI security systems. Second, it outlines machine learning threats and recommendations to abate them, to directly help security professional, Microsoft has enumerated the threat statement at each step of the AI security system building process. It provides a best set of practices that overlay and reinforces existing software security practice in the context of securing AI security systems. And lastly, it enables organizations to conduct risk assessment. The framework provides the ability to gather information about the current state of security of AI systems in an organization and perform gap analysis and track the progress of the security posture by providing you a secure score. The Microsoft Defender ATP Next Generation Protection Engine would eventually enable Microsoft Defender to protect the client against threats that are not yet detected or known. This is only a capability which lies with Microsoft products. And in addition, Microsoft machine learning, and artificial intelligence algorithms are used to identify and eliminate new and undetected threats. I think we have another poll coming up, Brian. So would you like to launch that?
Sure, let's get that started. Thank you, Farman. That's amazing stuff. I find it remarkable how far Microsoft's Defender tool set has come. It is quite sophisticated compared to what I remember it being many years ago. So this poll that we're going to send out to everybody is to understand a little bit about what features your current solutions cover. And don't worry if they don't cover everything out there. That's not unusual. That's part of the reason we're having this conversation, so you can help understand what is necessary to get more sophisticated, to protect yourself more, to have a greater certainty about what your exposure is and have control over that. We'll leave it out there for a few more seconds to give everyone a chance to make sure they've thought it through. And then we'll close it out here. All right, so okay, so it's across it's a variety. Most folks are doing some threat and vulnerability management, not really getting into all the pieces, but they have some tools in place. Almost everybody's doing, it looks like, because of that, plus email protection, but a lot of folks are looking that they need to do a little bit more. All right, that's very helpful. Thank you, everybody, for that. Farman, I think it's back to you.
Well, thank you for that. I think it was a really productive poll and would really help us understand the customer needs at the same time and how we can continue to provide such useful information, which ultimately benefits our crowd and audience today. So we know it's no secret that most cybersecurity attacks are initiated over an email. But it's not just one email. It's typically a swarm of emails designed to maximize the impact of the attack. And the attackers typically pick a carefully crafted attack pattern or template and send emails in waves where they produce slight variations to try and thwart defenses and dupe users. The common pattern or template across the waves of email defines their attack as campaigns, and attackers are getting better and better at morphing attacks quickly to evade detection and prevention. Being able to spot the forest for the trees, or in this case, the entire email campaign over individual messages, it's critical to ensuring comprehensive protection for the organization and users, and allow the security teams to spot weaknesses in defenses quicker and identify vulnerable users and take remediation steps faster, and harvest attacker intelligence to track and thwart future attacks by leveraging machine learning. So our next product is Microsoft Office Advanced Threat Protection, which is a cloud-based email filtering service that helps protect your organization against unknown malware and viruses by providing robust zero-day protection, and includes features to safeguard your organization from harmful links in real time. It uses machine learning and analysis techniques to detect malicious intent. Important mentions are as follow for advanced threat protection, covering the following. The first one, next slide, please. The first one would be ATP Safe Attachments, which are basically email containing malicious content to be scanned for malicious content. It routes all emails and messages that do not have a virus malware signature to a special environment then uses machine learning and analysis techniques to detect malicious intent. Basically, Microsoft quickly spins up on a virtual machine on the back end and executes the content carefully, watching for suspicious activity. And if it's detected as malware, it will be quarantined. Otherwise, if it's detected as a legit email, it'll be released down to the end user. Then we have ATP Safe links, which is whenever a user receives an email with a link available which is scanned as malicious, it'll be rewritten, and the end URL that will be received by the user would basically be shadowed out by a mock URL, which basically allows you to have that additional security layer added so your users wouldn't fall to malware-invested URLs. And this basically allows you to be able to protect your users from advanced threats. Next slide, please. Then we have ATP Fishing, which detects attempts to impersonate your users in custom domains. It applies machine learning models and advanced impersonation detection algorithms to avert phishing attacks. The ATP anti-phishing checks incoming messages for indicators that the message may be phishing. Then the incoming message is evaluated by multiple machine learning models that analyze the message to determine if the policy applies to the message and appropriate action is taken based on the configured policy or by Microsoft machine learning. Next slide, please. Lastly, we have Microsoft Mailbox Intelligence and automatic incident response. So let's talk about automated investigation response capabilities, or commonly known as AI. So AI automates the investigation of incoming alerts. These automated investigations are also known as security playbooks. While an automated investigation is running, it gathers additional data about the email in question and entities related to that email. And such entities can include files, URLs, and recipients. And results include recommendation actions that can be taken to respond and remediate any threats that were found. And in addition, a playbook log is also available so you can track all the investigation activity. Your security team or professionals can review the investigation results and recommendations and approve or reject remediation actions, or set it to an automated remediation state. Whereas then we have Mailbox Intelligence, which analyzes your cloud-based user flow patterns to determine which contacts they communicate with most often. This is the only capabilities that you can only get with Microsoft's security product, which evidently helps you to more easily identify when a message might be from an attacker who's impersonating one of those contacts. This intelligence also allows Microsoft 365 to customize user impersonation detection and better handle false positives. Well, that ends the discussion on Microsoft products' versatile coverage on machine learning and automated protection like no other. Let's now move to a general overview by bringing it all together. When we talk about the cybersecurity landscape, we know it's incredibly complex. Firewalls used to be the primary method for safeguarding company assets, but cloud apps and mobile devices have made the network perimeter obsolete. To protect an increasing number of endpoints, many companies invest in distinct solutions for each security problem. These products produce their own logs and security alerts that are difficult to integrate. It's impossible to get a 360-degree view of the environment. What these businesses really need is a holistic solution that puts identity at the center, like Greg mentioned. As cloud and mobile devices have expanded the attack surface, identity has become the new security control plane. And the security in Microsoft 365 is now identity-driven, and it addresses the security challenges of today and tomorrow across users, devices, apps, data, and platform, resulting in a closely knitted cybersecurity mesh. And it is powered by Microsoft Intelligence Security Graph, which synthesizes massive amount of threat intelligence and security signals from across Microsoft product services and partners to identify and mitigate cyber threats. In a shell, Microsoft 365 starts by protecting identities with advanced risk-based conditional access present in Azure Active Directory. And then Azure AD capabilities like multi-factor authentication and conditional access policies make it much more difficult for bad actors to get in. If an adversary does compromises an account, Azure AD works with other Microsoft solutions to elevate threats or automatically take necessary actions. Now, Microsoft 365 solution also help you to encrypt a document, prevent access to cloud app, enforce a password reset, or block access in real time, among other threat responses. We don't see any other vendors who are doing this as well as Microsoft, which is why we're building our security offering and practice exclusive on Microsoft 365 security solution. Our suggestions quantify that our primary objective with the step for 2023 should be covering everything under the same roof. With cybersecurity mesh, we recommend that your identity, device management, application, and compliance security should be holistically protected, logged, and managed with the benefit of reducing the cost for a well-protected infrastructure. I believe that wraps up our discussion for the most important tips we have for 2023 relating to cybersecurity and how you can address and make decisions to safeguard organizations and user. Over to you now, Brian, for a last tip on cybersecurity as a service. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Parman. Actually, I'm going to save everybody from me. I'm going to let Greg talk a little bit here, but hang on to your seats. I'll be back towards the end when Greg is done to ask you guys a few questions and to share some information with you. But I would like to encourage everybody, if you have questions, make sure you're posting those in chat so that we can then review them at the end. All right,
Excellent.
Greg, back to you.
Thank you, sir. Excellent. Okay, so security as a service. You are not alone when it comes to security. Security is complex, but you are certainly not alone. Your organization doesn't have to go through it by itself when it comes to security. But there are reasons why we should have something like security as a service. But before we do all that, what do we mean when we say security as a service? Security service is roughly defined as, specifically defined as, a business model in which a service provider integrates their security services into a corporate infrastructure on a subscription-based, more cost-effectively than most individuals or corporations can provide on their own when the total cost of ownership is considered. Security as a service is inspired by software as a service model as it applies to information security type services and does not require on-premise hardware, avoiding substantial capital layouts. So some of these services that security as a service can include can be something like authentication, antivirus, anti-malware, spyware, intrusion detection, pen testing, security management, SOC formation and SOC monitoring, you name it, among many, many other services. Security as a service allows you, if you do not have the staff, resources, or you're really unsure where to go with security and don't have the resources to develop your own, it allows you to hand that off to a contracting agent that can allow you to have a safe and secure environment. I think there's, next slide, please. So security is not an option these days. And security as a service really helps with this. So unfortunately, I have the responsibility to give you the statistics when it comes to security and lack of security when it comes to the industry worldwide. Microsoft blocks over 900 brute force password attempts every second. So out of all of the security suite that Microsoft has, password protection has got to be the weakest of all of them. And Microsoft will tell you that. All of these Microsoft products blend together to provide an identity security that allows you to protect your organization and your network. Microsoft blocked $9.6 billion in malware and $35 billion in phishing last year. In 2022, cybersecurity attacks reached, not will reach, but reached over $6 trillion in damage. That is a significant amount of money done. For most cybersecurity issues were found to be preventable. For example, MFA, conditional access, using something like Azure Active Directory identity protection. It's not that these tools are not available. It's just that customers were choosing not to use them, thinking that they were too unwieldy or they were not right. when in reality, those are exactly what each of our customers need. On an average, 287 days for security teams to identify and contain a breach. Let's take a look at that number. That's 287 days that a malicious actor, a bad guy, can be in your system using and acting on their target. Whatever your data is or whatever their services they're denying, they have 287 days on average, which means it could be a little bit more, maybe a little less, but could be a little bit more for them to do damage. The rise in supply chain ransomware attacks have skyrocketed. Over 800 attacks per week per organization is average. That's not just the big boys, the government or the large corporations, the enterprise level. That's SMBs, that's your small to medium businesses as well. And on average, a small business spends less than $500 on cybersecurity. Most of these cybersecurity attacks are done by state-sponsored advanced persistent threats. And these advanced persistent threats are well-funded. And you need to partner with an organization and have a network protection that allows you to harness lots of resources all at once. And using something like security as a service, if you're unsure where to begin, and certainly using something like Microsoft's complete suite of security products is definitely the way to go. So really, it is really incumbent upon you and your organization to really dig down and take that zero trust and principles and methods of protecting your environment and really secure down the identity of your network and the identity of each user in your network. Right. I think I'm taking it back over to Brian.
Excellent. Lucky everybody on here. Hopefully those.
One more. Yep.
So you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. What I also forgot to mention here is if you want to talk about what is the best security for you. Every network on its own has its own particular details. But if you want a solution that is actually going to have the widest ability to protect your network, Microsoft and Microsoft Security, specifically when you're talking about Azure, covers a lot of those areas. If any of you are familiar with Gartner and their Magic Quadrant, essentially it's an organization that will assess the different security solutions out there and let you know which one is the leader. If you look at all those little dots on those graphs, really what you're having there is those are all listed as security companies. For example, like Microsoft, when it comes to security networks and identities. And each of those you want to be in the upper right quadrant, which means you're both a leader and an innovator. Microsoft is in the upper right for every single one of them. And many of them, they are leading the way in access management, cloud access security brokering, enterprise information archiving, endpoint protections, and unified endpoint management. So the list goes on and on and on. So again, you're in great hands when you're using the Microsoft suite, when you're using MFA, when you're using that conditional access and identity protection. All of those things are being handled and managed when it comes to the development of those tools by a great company like Microsoft that's really leading the way, not only for customers, but in their industry.
All right, so I'm glad you said that because it's a lot more eloquent than what I had to say. So thank you. I'm sure everybody's much better off. Thank you, Greg.
Not a problem.
So a couple things I wanted to share with you guys, and it gives you an idea of what resources you have out there or some available resources to you. And both AlphaBOLD and TD SYNNEX, we have services and offerings that align with what we talked about today. I'll be brief on this because I want to get to your questions because I think that's where it all hits the pavement here. So for AlphaBOLD, we are a partner that can actually come in and assess your current environment. We can do that for new or existing customers of Microsoft, so you can hit the ground running from a clean slate, or if you already have been using Microsoft tools for and their environment and domains and so forth for years, we can actually come in and help you review what you have, identify gaps, and come up with a plan that can be prioritized, and you create an action plan out of that and figure out how to close the gaps, right? and how to improve your overall posture. We can also do this as Greg was just talking about, as security as a service and support as a service. Once you have it established, a well-protected, configured environment, then we can actually provide ongoing support in that regard if necessary. And in fact, a lot of our customers are looking to us to do that because it allows them to keep their IT teams focused on other value-added tasks. So keep that in mind as you're thinking of how you're going to grow in other pieces. How do you do that? Is it always just adding personnel, or are there some areas that they're critical to your business but aren't necessarily the the differentiator in your marketplace? But you want to work with a trusted partner that can set you up for success. For TD SYNNEX, they have a number of offerings as well. CyberRange is one of their, I think they have one of the first, if I'm not mistaken, cybersecurity training facilities to be hosted by an IT distributor. And so that's pretty impressive stuff. And that's, you go there for, that's education, demos, proof of concepts, other things that you can do to really see how the technology and solutions out there would work for you. Which is great, especially if you have if you're trying to explore into new marketplaces, new product realms, and all that. You want to make sure that you're set up for success and that your environment is also going to be not just pristine and secure, but also scale appropriately to your organization and your needs and your customer base. They have a tool, the Cybersecurity Assessment Tool. That's the CSAT. That's very cool. In fact, we talked with them on this, and this helps go in there and evaluate your environment. It has a number of things that they've done behind it to automate the process for collecting information and so forth that's actually used to help determine where some of those gaps are within your organization, not just document what you have, but it also identify areas for improvement. And then, of course, they have a whole group of professionals that are specialized in security, and that they can also provide services there. What you see there is we actually augment one another, and sort of a dynamic duo of sorts, and we can bring almost everything to the table for you and help you out in your needs. And we work closely together with a lot of our customers, and as we identify needs and making sure we come up with the right solution for a customer, not just today, but looking forward to tomorrow. So I wanted to share those with you. That's great. This, in the end, helped you not only educate, but prepare and protect your organization for today and today's and tomorrow's threats. And hopefully you found that informative. If you have any questions on that, at the end, we'll have a slide that has some information on how to reach out to us. Or you can also indicate that in chat if you wanted to as well. Next, we want to open up the, we want to take a look at a couple of the questions that came across from you, and see if it'd be interesting to see if any of this applies to you guys specifically. Let's give it a couple moments just to see, in case somebody wants to submit any last questions. Okay, so we have a couple questions here. One I think is very topical, and that is, can what we presented today help with preventing the ransomware attacks that we hear about in the news? Greg, why don't you see if you can take that one?
Absolutely. So ransomware is really the buzzword right now for when it comes to cyber threats, and it is definitely a threat to a variety of industries. Specifically, I think I mentioned it in relation to supply chain management or supply chain organizations. So really identifying and stopping that is critical. So the best way that you can stop ransomware is, again, by using those zero trust principles when it comes to identity security. So what the solution would be for something from Microsoft is the best way to do it is to adopt the Azure Active Directory Identity Protection. So that is using your conditional access, your MFA, your multi-factor authentication. So that's really using things like PIM. So PIM is going to be accessing, giving access for a short amount of time, just in time, and also reviews, so access reviews. So all of those things are required if you're really going to have the strongest chance against ransomware. And when you look to the technical front, not just the process, but also the technical front with email. So the Microsoft Defense for email really looks at those malicious URLs, malicious IP addresses to identify who the attackers are. And luckily, we have a giant security organization in Microsoft's midst that are currently looking at the most significant threats when it comes not just to ransomware, but all kinds of different threats that are out there, and those are updated locally. And there's a little plug here also for the monitoring front. I think that's the one that gets missed the most, is using something, a powerful tool like Microsoft Sentinel as an automated response to threats that are detected. So definitely something you want to keep in mind. So there's no one solution for protecting against ransomware. It's the integrated whole that Microsoft Active Directory Identity Protection provides, along with their Defender suite, Defender for Microsoft 365. All those together work together to make a solid defense.
Excellent, thank you, Greg. And one of the things that I've also done in that regard, we refer to it as some of our education within the organization for the awareness and understanding how social engineering and other pieces contribute to that, and how folks can sort of help us, help the IT organization in helping prevent those. So.
Yeah, Brian, I think that's important. That also gets overlooked is the educational piece. Unfortunately, the weakest link in any network is the human factor, and the more we can do to educate those we work with and those that have access to our networks, the better off we're going to be.
And I think I would like to add there, I think Microsoft has basically answered that concern as well. So we have the attack stimulation, trainings that we can basically perform along with the users to educate them better with phishing or ransomware attempts. And I think that that process as a whole would really help educate the users to be aware of what are the tips and tricks to identify such malicious attempts. So I think we're already there with Microsoft, but it's just that we have to get the news out to the people now.
Excellent, thank you both on that. I have a question that I'm going to ask Farman to actually take here. And the question is, how can we save, let me see if I worded this properly, forgive me. How can we save costs when we're implementing all these different solutions from Microsoft? It just seems like every time I see new features, it's just dollars and cents being added. You know, somebody's ringing the cash register. How can we get that under control?
So I think it really breaks down to two offerings that Microsoft has at the moment. So we have the Microsoft E5 security. So if you're looking to go and focus on the security part of things within your organization and address all those security risks, you can adapt the Microsoft E5 security, which offers you advanced identity protection. It covers you for any threat that you might have for your devices. And then we also have the protection layer for the cloud apps or the SaaS application integrations, which were it's really a question for a lot of organizations which are leveraging out a lot of SaaS applications. So all that can come under one roof with Microsoft E5 security. But if you have a concern for compliance, and that is something that you're looking to focus on for auditing and for communication compliance, and then again for retaining a certain level of cybersecurity or state or federal regulation that you might be pertaining to as an organization, you can utilize the E5 compliance part, which is just a $12 cost. And with that, you'll be saving a lot of money that you might be paying to external auditors or security professionals to be able to put in control for you. So I think it's just the factor of adapting onto the Microsoft ecosystem, which can really help you as a one-go solution for all of your concerns for security and compliance.
Excellent. Thank you, Farman. I want to add that, from the assessment, either from TD SYNNEX or from AlphaBOLD, in that process, we part of that's a license review, and we help identify where those opportunities are, what our risks are, what are savings opportunities in that, right? And so you end up choosing the most appropriate license, not only from a cost perspective, but also protection and capabilities perspective. So there's that. There's one last question, and lucky you guys, and it actually might be me that answers this one. If we do all these things, does this replace or augment my IT team? Interesting. So it's not meant to replace the people on your team. It is certainly meant to augment their abilities, enhance their ability to provide service and protect you. It gives them a lot of tools, so they're now empowered to do a lot more, not only from a prevention, but also from a monitoring and reporting perspective. So think of compliance and related tools or information that you need to do. There's a lot of data collection and all that. And there's a lot of things here that they're able to do now that in the past was very cumbersome. So I wouldn't look at it as a replacement, but it's a way to have them less spending time on some of these particular subjects. They have tools that can now do that, and now they can focus on how to properly align that strategically with what the goals are of the organization and get into those other value-added areas, to help, so you don't have to bring in, or hire, keep growing the team necessarily for things that are more seasonal and all that. And it's a great way to add value to your team. Okay. I think that's all we have time for today, folks. I want to thank you. I want to thank our speakers, Greg and Farman. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brian.
I want to thank you guys for the partnership that we have and helping work with us to put this together. I think it's wonderful. I actually want to thank everybody that's attended and making this meaningful. And hopefully you found this informative, perhaps even to the point that you want to reach out and find out a little bit more. I want to encourage you to do so. That's what we do. Right, and whether it's us or TD SYNNEX, if you reach out to us with the information you see on the screen, we'll make sure we route that around. And and if needed, we'll work together to help you, get to a better space. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks again, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and I hope this is a good thing for you as it was for us.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.